On this episode of Locked On Angels, the Halos take the first game against the Red Sox last night, but they do it without Logan O'Hoppe because he didn't start. And we're going to discuss why he didn't start and why that wasn't a good idea. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. The last rate and review, by the way, was around March. So everydayers want to help us out? You can do that by giving us a rate and review. And if you help us out, 5 stars. That'd be awesome. We'd appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, you can subscribe right now, become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Boy, it feels good to beat Boston after all those freaking playoff years, like 20 years ago.
Boston, yes.
Boston, yeah. We've been doing this 3 years now, and it's our 4th season as a host of Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday, 5 days a week. On today's show, we're wondering if Ron Washington is going to return this season or even next year. We'll discuss that. Jack Kochanowicz is throwing a new pitch. What is it? And did he use it effectively in last night's game? We'll share that. But first, let's get to 5 takeaways from the Angels' big win over the Red Sox, Mike, 9-5.
Yeah, first takeaway, Logan O'Hoppe was not in this game. And the reason, according to Ray Montgomery, who is the interim manager right now, was because of his defensive struggles. Now, O'Hoppe's defensive struggles are well known, and his numbers are not good behind the plate. Pitchers have a higher ERA with him behind the plate. He's in the negative when it comes to defensive runs saved. Montgomery said a big part of that position is that you have to serve 13 people who are throwing the baseball at you. And while Logan's offensive stuff speaks for itself, the defensive stuff has to get better, and he knows that. He's working on that. He's aware of that, and it's wearing on him, and we've got to get him to improve, and we're doing everything we can to help him get there. Now, here's the thing, John.
Except starting him, right?
Right. Here's the thing, is O'Hoppe was the guy that caught Jack Kochanowicz in his last 2 starts. 2 starts in which he was successful and had more strikeouts, and he was throwing a new grip on the changeup. We're going to talk about that in segment 2 and discuss how he used it. John, O'Hoppe's coming off 3 home runs in 2 games. It just felt like a swing and a miss not having O'Hoppe start this game. Am I wrong?
Yeah, especially the way it started with the Red Sox going up 3-0 in the first inning. Fortunately, Walker Buehler was really awful in the first inning. We'll address that. But Mike, I mean, look, it's hard to say whether or not Travis d'Arnaud being behind the dish for Jack Kochanowicz was the factor here that made things uncomfortable for Kochanowicz. Maybe Kochanowicz needs to be traded to an East Coast team because he thrives out there, apparently. Baltimore and then the Yankees. I know the Baltimore start was cut short because of rain, but he had only made 2 mistake pitches in that game and in the game against the Yankees last week. So really all of that to say, there's a lot of factors and nuance here. Now, would I have rolled with O'Hoppe for a 3rd straight Jack Kochanowicz start? Yes, because I want to see if the results stick. And we said that after Baltimore. We said that after the Yankees. I want to know if Kochanowicz figured something out. But then you change the equation. And now, who knows? Because also, we're going to talk about it. Jack Kochanowicz had a new pitch, a new changeup, and so it's just like, well, now what is it? Because now we don't have any. Now we don't have any data points. We don't have any consistency. We don't have any results that tell us, oh, it's because d'Arnaud was back there. Or, oh, it's because O'Hoppe was back there. So I think that it was a mistake to sit Logan, especially how this game went offensively. Now they did come away with the win, which is fantastic, but leading into our second takeaway, Jack Kochanowicz really struggled in this game and in the first inning. And he hasn't been bad in the first inning. He's got a 4.20 ERA. He's actually worse in the second inning where he has a 9 ERA. In this game, he went 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and 1 strikeout. He gave up 3 runs on 5 hits in that first inning, but then just 1 hit and 1 run in innings 2 through 5. Struggled to locate, left the sinker up. And again, we'll discuss more of what he was able to do in segment 2.
Yeah, third takeaway, John. The first inning has been the Angels' best inning against the Red Sox. They've scored 15 runs in the first inning over the last 4 games against the Sox this season. They scored 5 in the first last night, and it just felt like it kept coming, and it kept coming, and it kept coming, right? Like it started off with a Zach Neto home run. We're down 3-0. Zach Neto hits a home run. He's got 6 leadoff home runs this season, tying him with Brian Downing and one of my favorite Angels who was only here for a little bit, but he was great, Tony Phillips.
Oh, yeah.
Bend down and felt like he was going to touch his toes because he was so crouched at the plate. 1995 was when he hit 6 leadoff home runs. 1982 is when Brian Downing did that. Only Downing has hit more. He hit 7 leadoff home runs in 1987. Then after the home run, Mike Trout walks, Taylor Ward walks, and after the second out, Joe Adell singles. That scores Mike Trout. Then Lamont Wade Jr. is hit by a pitch. Rengifo walks, and Ward scores. Then Rengifo, by the way, walks 3 times. We'll talk about the walks in a little bit. Then Christian Moore walks, and Joe Adell scores. Then Zach Neto gets hit by a pitch, and he was not thrilled with that. And Lamont Wade Jr. scores 5 total runs in that first inning on just 2 hits. Angels had 4 walks and 2 hit by pitches just in that inning.
Talk about Walker Buehler right there. Come on, let's go. Fourth takeaway, Christian Moore got the rally started in the 8th inning, Mike. He really had a fantastic 8-pitch at bat in the bottom of the 8th, and it led to the go-ahead sacrifice fly. Now, I want to say this was finally our first taste of late night Lamont, who singled to get on, stole second, takes third on the ball that's thrown away from the catcher. And so that's what put him in position to come in on that sacrifice fly. And it was fantastic because Christian Moore battled. He got something he could send out to the outfield. And even though Wilyer Abreu got to that ball, he sailed it. So Lamont was more than safe in that one. And then the offense was better last night too. Angels were very patient, had 11 walks last night, 3 from Rengifo, 3 from Trout. One of those was intentional, right? An intentional walk. And then Taylor Ward had 4, which was incredible. The Angels scored 3 runs on 3 bases loaded walks last night. They scored 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th to break the tie game with a Travis d'Arnaud 2-run single that he just reached up and got, which was fantastic.
Yeah, look, can I take you back to Christian Moore for just a moment? Because I really like his makeup. I like the kind of player he is. I think he's just going to be around. Keep playing him, Ray Montgomery. Keep him in that starting lineup. Don't send him back down. Just let him hang, right? This is where he needs to be. But he was involved in a really great double play. Neto gets a ground ball at short, does what Neto does, right? He's got a runner moving from second to third, throws it to third to get that runner. Rengifo runs him back and then throws it to Moore. Moore chases him back down. Good on Rengifo because Rengifo then went behind Moore and covered second base. So Christian Moore tags out the runner, then does a Jeter-like twirl and throws it back to second base. And Rengifo then tags out the runner at second base, and the Angels were able to get a double play. Now, I know that there were some fireworks after that. Alex Cora comes out and was wondering if Rengifo was blocking, if he was in the way, all of those things. But Rengifo caught the ball, and the guy was literally just, he was out. He would have been out anyway, but he was trying to swim around Rengifo. Rengifo tagged him. It was a great double play. It was so needed in that inning.
It's nice to be on the other side of bad base running, bad fundamentals, all of that kind of stuff to where the Angels can take advantage of that. Mike, that kind of happened in the last Red Sox series too. So I know Alex Cora was fired up, but get your guys in shape, dude. They shouldn't be running themselves out of outs, but we'll take it. And he got ejected after he got heated. But point that finger right back at you, man, because those are your guys running the bases out there. Yeah.
Fifth takeaway, John. Reed Detmers just, can I say this out loud? Exudes confidence. This guy is a completely different guy on the mound mindset-wise, he just goes after hitters right now. He took over from Brock Burke in the top of the 7th, runners at 2nd and 3rd with 1 out. John, he strikes out Roman Anthony. He strikes out Trevor Story. And then he was throwing pitches that had a ton of break. It was Jared Timms. If you don't follow him from Talking Halos, you should. He's got some great stats on Reed Detmers. I think there was like a 20-inch vertical break on one of his fastballs.
Okay. So it was 96 miles an hour, 22 inches of induced vertical break. So essentially, let me explain it like this. And we've talked about it before. Where you think the fastball is going to go, and then the amount of break that Reed Detmers put on it, which is, they call it that rising action. Basically, it looks like it's going to be here. And for those on the audio side, I'm down at the bottom of my screen, but where it ends up is here. So, any normal ball that's traveling at a normal rate would end up down here, but because of the spin that Detmers puts on it, it stays. It's not actually moving up, right? It's not actually defying gravity. It's actually moving down, but it should end up at the bottom, and it ends up here. And that's what's tricky for hitters, is that just in that moment, your eye thinks, oh, here's where it's going to go. That's where I'm going to swing. And again, you have 0.2 seconds to make a swing decision.
Right. Yep.
And that's the advantage of induced vertical break. So that was fantastic to see. We got to see Sam Bachman come into this game, get his first win of 2025, pitched an inning and struck out 2. He was sitting 97 and 99, had a ton of horizontal break on his sinker. The Angels used 9 homegrown players last night, drafted, developed, and now in the major leagues, and helped the team win this game. Last in the rankings in the minor league, but hey, we got 9 performing well in the majors.
Right.
2 notes in this one, Mike. Kevin Newman is on paternity leave. Congrats to him. Hey, Kev, take a few days off. Enjoy that. I know how hard being a new father can be. It just happened to me in December. So you know what? You need some time off. Take as much time as you need. I'll talk to Perry. I'll talk to Artie. I'll talk to Ray Montgomery for you. You take that time off, my friend. Be a good dad. Congratulations. Stay home. Be with your family, your new baby, your wife. Stay home. Get that rest. Stay home. Take care of that baby. Oh, sorry. I keep saying stay home. And then, Mike, big bummer of news here. Kenley Jansen left the game in the middle of his outing he was in when the game was 9-5, so it wasn't a safe situation. But you go to him because he's a gamer, and he's going to make sure you finish out that game. Fortunately, Hector Neris was able to do it. But it looked like he had something going on with his shoulder, his throwing shoulder, maybe the pectoral area. But he threw 4 pitches and his velo was down. And so and he grimaced as he threw his 4th pitch, and everybody ran out there and they pulled him out of this game.
I wonder if he just didn't feel that in the bullpen. I always wonder about that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too.
Pitchers, when they come out, do they not feel it in the bullpen, or are they just trying to work through it in the bullpen? Are they telling themselves, I'm kind of cold and I need to kind of flex that muscle a little bit? Those are always my thoughts. Because if he's feeling in the bullpen, man, I think you gotta say, dude, I'm not ready for this. Yeah. Now I know there was a lot of argument on social media about should he have come in, should he have not come in. I know the Angels are trying to get him some work. I think in this situation it made sense because he was already warming up, and that's why you brought him in. Although I would prefer not to have him in if it's not a save situation. And luckily Hector Neris took over. I think it's probably going to be maybe a combination of Hector Neris and maybe Reed Detmers that is going to be closing games out if Kenley Jansen has to go on the IL for any amount of time.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, what's the future hold for Ron Washington and the Angels? Is he going to be back this season, maybe next year? Or is this the chance for Ray Montgomery to prove himself as a manager? We're going to discuss all of that in segment 3, and we'll get to those conversations coming right up.
Fellas, real quick, personal conversation. So lean in, maybe turn the volume down a little bit if you have kids in the car, but maybe you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, and maybe you've even tried that and you know why you have tried that. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. And I'm trying to keep this PG. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet is a 3-in-1 formula, dissolves under your tongue and kicks in really fast. On average, about 15 minutes, and the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. It's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your front door. You can read real customers and their real reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of guys feel a whole lot more confident and present in the moment. And this is a conversation that I think is important to have because we normally don't talk about this as dudes. So hopefully you are picking up what I'm putting down in the car, especially if you have kids there. And we're going to have you visit Rugiet.com/LockedOnMLB and use our promo code LockedOnMLB. You're going to get 15% off starting today. That's Rugiet.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnMLB. Use our promo code LockedOnMLB for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Jack Kochanowicz is trying out a new pitch, and it's a one-seam changeup. It was a pitch he learned in his last few starts against the Yanks and leaned on that one a lot. He had a lot of success with it, getting 7 of his 12 swinging strikes on that changeup. Kochanowicz started throwing the pitch because Barry Enright suggested it. Barry Enright believed that this new grip would help him make the hard sinker even more effective because, again, he sits like 96 with that sinker. But the grip, the one-seam grip, helps Kochanowicz get the same spin on that pitch as he does on his sinker. So it looks the same coming out of Jack Kochanowicz's hand, but it moves differently as it approaches the plate. Also different speeds, so it's very easy to fool hitters with that. The new grip not only makes the changeup sink, but it causes it to fade away from left-handed hitters, so it gives him a nice little tool there to use against lefties. He's been throwing it more to lefties than righties because they've been hitting him hard. And so entering last night's game, lefties are hitting .305 with a .937 OPS in 13 homers and 200 plate appearances against Kochanowicz this season. Right-handers are hitting .254 with a .665 OPS, 2 home runs in 137 plate appearances. So you can see there's a wide gap between lefties and righties. So he needed something to change. He said, the changeup I was throwing before, it was going down, but it didn't have that traditional fade to it. I wanted more horizontal movement. So Mike, you did the research. Did Jack throw that new changeup last night?
The answer is yes, and he threw it 17 times, and he only threw it to left-handed batters. Did not throw it once to right-handed batters. So was he effective? The answer there is kinda. He was kind of effective. When he threw it, he was kind of effective. Kochanowicz didn't throw it at all in the first inning to any left-handed batters. The results, 5 hits, 3 runs. Wasn't good. They were hitting his sinker, and he was leaving his sinker in terrible spots, and they were making contact. And then when he missed with his sinker, they were still making contact, and they were slapping it around. 5 hits again, 3 runs in that first inning. When he did throw the change, he threw it kind of effectively, but he did miss his spots. Now, did get 11 swings and 5 whiffs on the change, but he struggled to locate. But he struggled to locate everything last night. A lot was up, a lot was off the plate. He was back to the Kochanowicz that couldn't find the strike zone and didn't walk a lot of guys, but was not in control last night. And
can I just say, you brought up the fact that he didn't have the control, couldn't find the strike zone. I had PTSD of watching Reed Detmers and Patrick Sandoval and Griffin Canning, Andrew Heaney, right? All these guys that have come up and just struggled to locate. Now, I feel pretty confident that Kochanowicz can get it back. But man, just watching that last night, I had all sorts of, Vietnam flashbacks of watching those guys. Yeah. And it was frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, as a fan, it was frustrating to watch, but it leads into the question of, is this because d'Arnaud was behind the plate and not Logan O'Hoppe? What do you think?
Well, I think you made a really good point in the first segment, and I I think if you didn't pay attention to it, go back and listen to it again, because what John said, I want to repeat. We just don't have the metrics because they didn't have O'Hoppe back behind the plate. So now we just don't know, because there was 2 games, kind of a half a game and a full game with O'Hoppe back there. And then we had d'Arnaud, and he's throwing this new pitch. So we just don't know if that was really the case. Now, is he learning how to throw this pitch? Yes. But John, his last 2 starts, he was really effective and throwing that changeup specifically to left-handers. Now, he threw it to some right-handers in the last 2 starts, did not throw it to right-handers last night. And that might be some of the difference that we might see with a d'Arnaud versus an O'Hoppe. And it seemed like Jack Kochanowicz was locating better in his previous 2 starts and didn't locate really well last night. Now, I think that really has to do with rhythm. Remember when Chris Cortez was on here and we interviewed Davis Daniel last year, like both of those guys have said rhythm and control and knowing what's coming, all of those things, like that is so important to a starting pitcher specifically.
Routine, right?
And the routine of that. And so to not have that with O'Hoppe back there after 2 really good starts, it just didn't make sense. And then I know his defense is not great and he's got to work on that. But I mean, how's he going to work on that? Right? You're not going to send him down. He's not going to go to the minor leagues. So you got to have him in there. You got to have him play. And especially with somebody like Kochanowicz, who was looking good with him behind the plate. So I think that had something to do with it. But again, we're in a situation where the metrics, there isn't enough to be able to measure if this really was a O'Hoppe versus d'Arnaud situation. Really what happened last night is that Kochanowicz did throw it again, but he just wasn't able to be as effective in locating it and getting hitters to miss it like he did in the previous 2 starts.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, it was in Jeff Fletcher's article about all of this, was Ray Montgomery saying we want all the catchers to be able to catch for all the pitchers. So, we've seen a lot of pairings throughout this season. We've seen a lot of d'Arnaud and Hendricks, right? Or even d'Arnaud and Kikuchi or what have you. And then a lot of Tyler Anderson and O'Hoppe and Kochanowicz and O'Hoppe. But so I understand the need for everybody to be able to catch everyone. However, I'm just really frustrated with the fact that you started to, find something between Kochanowicz and O'Hoppe. You were on to something.
Yeah.
But then you didn't let the experiment play out. You
moved on way too quick, right?
Yeah. And so the other thing is, Mike, I don't think that we'll know other than, who's calling the pitches. And maybe it was a d'Arnaud decision, and maybe O'Hoppe calls pitches a little bit differently, and they understand the situation a little bit differently. Now, d'Arnaud is the more experienced catcher, and obviously he's better defensively. But like you said, O'Hoppe's got to be in there to get better defensively. And it's not as if he's not trying. We've talked about limitless articles on here from Jeff Fletcher, Rhett Bollinger, even Sam Blum about O'Hoppe and the changes he's trying to make behind the dish to get better. So it's not as if he's not trying. It really comes down to there's too many factors here to know whether or not the guy behind the plate was the one who affected Jack Kochanowicz's outing. You can't say that with 100% certainty. However, we can look at the last 2 starts that Kochanowicz had with O'Hoppe behind the dish and say, oh, maybe he's finally coming around. Maybe he's starting to get into that rhythm. And the evidence shows us that last night with d'Arnaud behind the dish, he was out of sorts. He was out of rhythm. He couldn't locate. And so, again, that's not enough to be 100% certain on anything. But I think it says a lot about who was behind the dish when he was doing well versus when he wasn't doing well, how he was using that changeup versus how he did or didn't use it last night, right? And you mentioned the times that he threw it and the results that he had, but also the results that he had in that first inning where he didn't throw it to any lefties and got hit around. So it really makes you think. It comes down to this pairing. Again, I think they cut off the experiment way too early. I think it was a mistake. Hopefully, the next time Jack Kochanowicz goes out there, we can see a little bit more of Logan O'Hoppe behind the dish, because we've seen him with some of these other guys where he's caught them really well, like Kyle Hendricks 2 starts ago. And so, yeah, it just comes down to O'Hoppe and Kochanowicz need to be paired up so that we can let this thing play out.
One of the most anxiety-inducing situations in life is money. When it comes to your money, your bank account, your bills, all the things that you're spending on. And often we can look at our bank account and go, where did my money go? Who spent that? Oh, it was me. I spent that. And you don't need to have that anymore. That's where Monarch Money comes in. They're your personal CFO. They're giving you full visibility and control over your finances. No more anxiety. They're going to help you out. They're not just a budgeting app. They're a complete financial command center. Track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You can stop managing your money, start building your wealth. Money conversations with your partner is smoother than ever, and you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all of the stress with Monarch Money. And you can go to their website today, monarchmoney.com. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get 50% off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Get half off your first year.
The surprising news that came out last Friday was that Ron Washington will be taking a leave of absence from managing this team and this season due to health reasons. Both the players and GM Perry Manassian spoke about what happened. He said, health is the most important thing. I'm not letting him manage until he's 100%. Wash is going to be around, but he won't be in the dugout. Zach Neto mentioned that health is way more important, and he hasn't been himself these past couple of days. We all saw that. I'm glad he was able to figure something out and take these days to get himself back. Now, ESPN reported that Wash experienced some shortness of breath, appeared fatigued toward the end of their 4-game series against the Yankees. The Yankees doctors actually looked into it, and they cleared him to fly home with the team last Thursday night, and he underwent a series of medical tests on Friday. It sounds like it might be a heart issue that Wash is dealing with. They never actually said what it was specifically, but Perry did go on to say this. He said, you care about the person. You guys know he's an outstanding guy. We all know how important this is, but certain things are bigger than baseball, and health is obvious first and foremost. He wanted to manage, obviously. I don't know that he's ever missed a game. He was dying to manage, but at the end of the day, you have to make tough decisions. And for me, I want to make sure the guy is absolutely healthy and physically is in the right place before we put him back in the dugout. We played some close games every night, right? You guys watch. That's not the type of games you can sit back and kick your feet up and watch. They're tight games and stressful games. And I want to make sure he's good to go health-wise before he gets back in there.
John, he mentioned stress as kind of an indication of what's going on, stressful games, right? And so that's where I think some of the rumors of the heart issue came up, but nothing's been confirmed. But there are some questions in light of this. Let me ask you the first one. What sort of impact has the absence of Ron Washington had on this team so far? Because they're 2-2 with Ray Montgomery as the manager. Doesn't feel like much has changed, but have you noticed any change? What do you think?
It feels like Ray Montgomery is sticking to the Ron Washington playbook. Mike, I do have to question whether or not Zach Neto would have sat on Sunday, against the Astros, especially a lot of people were saying this on social media, like, this is a division rival.
Yeah.
You have to win these games.
Yeah.
Why are you sitting? Why does he need a day off against the Astros right now? Well, you take into the fact that he was hit a ton. He's been flying around the bases a ton and playing really hard. So maybe he was due for a day off. Now, it wasn't a straight up day off because it was like no, he's just not starting. Mm-hmm. If we need him in the game later, we'll put him in. And certainly he came in, hit that pinch hit home run on the first pitch he saw. And so maybe that's what is a little bit different from Ray to Ron, or Ron to Ray, I guess you should say. And the fact is that they wanted to get Neto off of his seat, but they were willing to let him come in. I guess that's not something that Ron wouldn't do, but it was something that we were made aware of ahead of time, right? It was something that Ray was very clear about. I'm actually really interested to see what happens with Ray Montgomery because he's been the bench coach for a while now. And a lot of times we thought, oh, he's Perry's eyes and ears in the dugout, especially when Perry first got here. Mike, I think he leans a little bit more analytically, for better or worse. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's quite Brad Ausmus when he was here and being the manager. However, I will say that Ray Montgomery had a lot of managerial interest that I was quite surprised about, actually. when it came to, I believe it was when the Astros were trying to decide what to do after Dusty Baker retired. And obviously they went with Joe Espada, who was also the bench coach for the Astros and came highly regarded. A lot of fans wanted him, but there was some conversation about possibly bringing in Ray Montgomery to do that job. And so to me, people were already kind of asking like, hey, what do you think about this move? What do you think about Ray Montgomery being the manager? I'm interested to let this play out. I think we need at least a month, maybe even to the All-Star break before we can really make a decision on what kind of manager he's going to be, what kind of, coach he's going to be, how he is in the locker room with the guys and all that sort of stuff. It's been interesting to see how, every day you kind of feel like, oh, what's the lineup going to be? But then it's kind of more of the same, right? Yeah. It hasn't really changed all that much. And obviously you got to stick with what works, but part of me wondered if he'd make some changes. And part of me wondered if he would move Trout like back to number 5, right? So some of those things that you might consider. Again, I think for better or for worse, he's going to be a little bit more analytically driven because that's kind of his history. That's why Perry, I think, brought him in. But what do you think is going to happen with Ron Washington as his deal does expire at the end of the season? Do you think he'll be extended next year?
I think that they're going to give him a gimme and have him come back next year, especially if Perry's going to come back. And that's all dependent upon if he's healthy or not. I think he's going to be around for at least one more year, even if he's not managing. I think the Angels got to have that energy and that fire starter. And honestly, I think that that's the best version of Ron Washington, because the Atlanta Braves fans and everydayers that watch Locked On Braves talk about Wash being the missing link for why the Braves are really struggling this year. And I think that that's what he brings to this team. Where I've seen a bit of a difference, and you mentioned analytics, is Ray Montgomery let Hunter Strickland fight through it this last weekend, and he's let a couple of pitchers fight through some of their struggles, and they've come out on the other side pretty successful. Now, I know Strickland had a difficult weekend against the Astros, but I that's the difference that I see. It's not much, but that's the difference that I see, and I wonder if the analytics play into that, because Wash is a guy who's going to come out when there's 2 outs, and I'm possibly going to pull this guy. He's going to come out and give him a fired up talk, but Ray's going to look at the analytics and go, nah, Hector Neris usually does better against this guy and usually does better if you give him a chance. And I think that that's probably going to be the difference. You won't see a rah, conversation. You're going to just see, I'm going to let him, I'm going to let him go in there. Hey, Barry, go say hi. And then come back. But right. I'm not going to go out there and fire him up like Ron Washington would.
Yeah, definitely. And what's, we mentioned this when the news first came out, is we all wondered, like, why doesn't Wash get fired up and speak on behalf of his guys, especially when the umpiring's been so bad this year? And this kind of opened our eyes to, well, if it's a heart thing, which again, all indications kind of feel like it is with the shortness of breath and all that kind of stuff, it makes sense why he's not screaming and yelling and getting fired up. And Barry Enright, as we talked about yesterday, has handled most of that from the dugout, which, yeah, go Barry, let's go. That's why I love Barry Enright. But all that to say, that makes all of this make so much more sense. It'll be interesting if he is able to come back before the end of the year. But again, I really want to give Ray Montgomery some runway before we really dive into what's the difference here. How does he handle things? What would he do differently than Ron? What would Ron do differently than him? I think that's going to be a fun conversation to have, but I also think that we need to give that some runway for sure.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. You can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube. Find today's show. Get in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you there. Mike, what do we have on deck on Wednesday's show?
Well, what would cause the Angels to be buyers or sellers at the deadline? There's a report out there, and the report gives the answer, and we're going to share that answer with you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. That's going to be a doozy, but here we go. All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
A doozy.
A doozy.
Oh, I haven't heard that phrase in a long time. Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome. Told you I'm a